Hello student. So today we are going to discuss the topic of international human resource management, that is international staffing practices. First thing that we need to understand that due to globalization and due to change in the dynamics of market, the companies have gone global and they are treating the entire world as a global village. Because of the internationalization, many companies have to change their recruitment and selection practices. So, therefore, today we are going to discuss the international staffing practices. Before that, we will discuss the different types of international organizations. What are the different IHRM practices that the company are following due to internationalization? How the company is recruiting or approaching the different set of people, and how they are also considering or modulating their international selection criteria. So next thing that we are going to discuss is the brief overview about the IHRM practices. Moving forward with the different international human resource management practices, the first practice is international staffing. So in this we will discuss in detail the different type of employees recruited or the different type of approaches adopted by the organization to recruit the people when they are going for the internationalization of business. Second is we need to understand what are the different kinds of training that are essential to impart to the different employees when they are going for international assignments. So we'll be discussing in detail the pre-departure training, talking about the concept of expatriation when the people are going for international assignments, repatriation, that means when the people they have completed their tenure and they have completed their international assignments, they come back to the nation, they come back to the parent nation. So how they are going to adjust back into that nation is the process of repatriation. Discussing the concept of performance management in international assignments. Again, one more concept that we will discuss today is compensation issue in international assignments. So now let us understand what are the different types of international organizations that are working in the international HRM perspective. So it can be divided into four categories. First is international cooperation, second is multinational cooperation, third is global corporations, and fourth is transnational corporations. So the first is international corporation. So international corporations are domestic firms that builds on its existing capabilities to penetrate overseas market. Example can be Honda, General Electric, Procter and Gamble, etc. Multinational corporations are those organizations which have operating units or which is known as subsidiaries located in foreign countries. Subsidiaries, these are the subsidiaries which functions as a autonomous units. So MNCs are basically those organizations where these subsidiaries has a freedom to work as an independent unit, understanding the culture, the values of that particular nation, and making their organization or adapting their HR practices according to the needs and the requirement of the situation in that country. So example can be Shell, it is Philips and Xerox. Next is global corporations. These are the firms which maintains control over its worldwide operation, that is subsidiaries, through a centralized home country or home office. They treat the entire world as a single market. For example, Matsushita. And the last is transnational corporations. These are the corporations which provide autonomy to independent country operations but bring these operations together into an integrated whole through network structure. They combine the local responsiveness of an MNCs and the efficiency of a global corporation. Example, Ford and Unilever. So the first concept is international staffing. Now let us understand what is international staffing. International staffing refers to the process of selecting employees for staffing international operation of an MNC. So MNCs can be staffed during three different sources. So generally speaking, there are three sources of employees for international assignment. The organization might choose to select. The first is home country or parent country national. Second is host country national. And third is third country national. So we will discuss in detail one by one this concept. According to P.V. Morgan, let us understand the concept of international HRM. He said that international HRM is the result of an interplay among three dimensions: human resource activities, types of employees, and countries of operation. The complexities of operating in various countries and employing different national category of workers are an important variable that differentiates domestic and international HRM rather than any major difference between HRM activities performed. So broadly stated, IHRM according to him is the process of procuring, allocating and effectively utilizing human resources in multinational corporations. So when compared to domestic human resource management, the scope of IHRM is wide. Okay, so here we can see that there is kind of HR activities that he has discussed in the diagram also. First is procure, then allocate, and third is utilize. Here we are talking about nations. The first is host nation, second is home nation, and third is other. So we are talking about three different type of countries in the diagram, as you can see. The first is host country, then the home country, and other country apart from host and the home country. Based on the countries, there are different type of nationals. The first is host country national, second is parent country national, and third is third country national. So we will discuss one by one the concept of all three nationals. So now let us understand the concept of all three types of nationals. So host country national, it is also called local nationals. They are the employees from the local population. So a worker from Bihar employed by an American firm operating in India would be considered a host country national. Okay, is that the concept is clear? Second is parent or home country national. So it is also called expatriates. They are the people sent from the country in which the organization is headquartered. Suppose let us take the example, if the TCS is an Indian company, fine, and if TCS is sending any person from India to, let's say, US or UK, that particular person will be known as expatriate. Third country national, TCN are from a country other than where the parent organization's headquarters or operations are located. So if the American firm employs a manager from Great Britain at facilities in India, he would be considered a third country national. So after understanding the concept of different type of nationals, now let us understand the approaches to staffing subsidiaries, or we can call it international recruitment policies. So companies operating outside their home countries essentially follow three ways of hiring executives. Okay, the first is ethnocentrism. It is a cultural attitude marked by the tendency to regard one's own culture as superior to the other. So sending home country executive abroad thinking that they will be able to deliver the goods may be an appropriate strategy in the initial stage of expanding company's operation worldwide, as these officials know what to do immediately. So basically in case of ethnocentrism, the main focus that our culture is superior as compared to the culture of the other nation. Like we can take example of Royal Dutch. In this particular case, they have done virtually all financial controllers around the world were Dutch nationals. So often the other reason advanced for ethnocentrism staffing policies includes lack of qualified host country managerial talent. It can be a desire to have a unified corporate culture across the globe. The company is able to maintain a tight control, and also the keenness of the company to transfer the core competencies. Second is polycentrism. So in the polycentric corporation, there is a conscious belief that only host country managers can ever really understand the culture and behavior of the host country market. Therefore, the foreign subsidiary should be managed by local people. So the home office headquarters, of course, is staffed by parent country nationals. Fine. So it eliminates the language barrier, expensive training periods, cross-cultural adjustment problems of managers and their families. It also permits the firms to attract talented local by offering an attractive compensation package. Third concept is geocentrism, which assumes that management candidate must be searched on a global basis without favoring anyone. So here the main focus in looking for or searching for the person who is competent enough without favoring a host or a parent country nation. So the best manager for any specific position anywhere on the globe may be found in any of the countries in which the firm operates. So such a staffing policy seeks the best people for important jobs throughout the organization regardless of its nationality. So after discussing the different approaches, now through this diagram we will try to understand the various advantages and disadvantages. The first approach that we have discussed is ethnocentric. The strategic appropriateness is international. The basic advantages is it overcomes the lack of qualified managers in the host nation. It basically promotes the unified culture. It also helps the companies to transfer their core competencies to other foreign subsidiaries. The disadvantage is it produces resentment in the host country. It can also lead to cultural myopia. Now moving further, we can see in polycentric, it is multi-domestic, and the basic advantage is it basically elevates cultural myopia. It is inexpensive to implement. Disadvantage, it limits the career mobility. It surely isolates headquarters from their foreign subsidiaries. Last in this category is geocentric. So the geocentric has the strategic appropriateness that is global and transnational. So it uses human resource efficiently. The main concern is not on the nationality or the ethnicity but on the core competencies of the individual. So because of that, it helps in building strong culture and informal management network. The disadvantage, the national immigration policies may limit implementation and it is quite expensive in nature. So the next topic that we will discuss is international selection criteria. So after discussing the international recruitment policy and approaches that are adopted by the different companies to recruit the different set of people, now let us understand the international selection criteria. So international postings are complex and carry a lot of inbuilt pressures along with them. It would be erroneous to assume that the job requires the same set of skills in different locations. The local dynamics might be different. The cultural and social pressures might be too complex. If the spouse and children join the expatriate, there are additional issues to be resolved, from learning a new language to shopping in a new environment to children finding new friends and attending new schools. For an expat to succeed, therefore, the selection process must be rigorous and must invariably include criteria such as: first, general and technical criteria. So research findings consistently indicate that MNCs place heavy reliance on relevant technical skills during the expatriate selection process. In addition, the expatriate manager should be a good communicator. He should also possess management talent, maturity, emotional stability in ample measure. Next is language skills. Most researchers argue that knowledge of the host country's language is an important factor affecting the performance of an expatriate, where the expatriate is expected to communicate with the host country subjects frequently. Language skills come to occupy the center stage. Tung and Anderson's study indicated that the respondents, that too mostly Americans, greatly valued the ability to speak local language regardless of how different the culture was from their home country. Next comes is cross-cultural suitability. Expatriate managers must be able to adapt to change. They must have the ability to translate their technical or managerial skills into meaningful action plans in a foreign environment. They should not get along with the local people. They should get along with the local people easily without upsetting host country customs, traditions, and other cultural niceties. The expatriate managers should, as a rule, have good interpersonal skills and extra-cultural openness, including a variety of outside interest, tolerance for ambiguity, and non-judgmental behavior. Next is motivation for a foreign assignment. The candidate for a foreign assignment must believe in the importance of the job and possess a certain amount of idealism or a sense of mission. Applicants who are not happy with their current situation at home and are looking to get away rarely succeed as overseas manager. And last in this is family situation. Several items including the adaptability of spouse and family, spouse positive opinion, willingness of spouse to live abroad, stable marriages comprises this factor. So this factor was found to be the most important among the points that we have already discussed, contributing to the expect success or failure on a foreign locale. So these are the basic things that we have discussed under international recruitment practices, staffing practices, and selection criteria. Thank you very much.